Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so delighted and honored today to be talking with my guest. I was very honored to be a guest on his podcast back in October. We'll put the link in the notes just in case you want to watch that. But we had a great time. And I knew that I had to have him on the Business Power Hour. And so please join me in welcoming Rick Cram to our program today. Welcome, Rick. How are you?
Deb, I'm so glad to be with you. And hello to all of you who are watching now or the recording. So good to be with you too.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you and we'll jump into this. So Rick Cram is the creator and author of Plan to Be Your Best as You Navigate Pain. He is a resilience coach who helps you become the most resilient person you know. He lives by his guiding truth. The level of pain must be matched by the level of intentionality. With a background as a communication and leadership expert and trained caregiver, Rick's own journey from a life-altering football injury, 7 surgeries on his left knee, and decades of pain taught him that resilience isn't just surviving, it's transforming. His signature method moves beyond endurance. Through the 8 Paths of Intentionality, Rick guides individuals and teams to turn challenges into direction, build sustained resilience, reclaim energy, and live with purpose. Whether you're leading through organizational stress or navigating personal adversity, Rick's whole person intentional approach equips you with proven strategies and skills and emerge more confident, empowered, and resilient than ever. Again, Rick, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. So good to be here. There's one particular word that always stands out when I either read my own bio or edit it a little bit, and it's the word intentionality.
Right.
Being purpose driven. It's the anchor to so much of what I need to do and what I found others need to both realize and start to experience when they're facing a challenge that is something greater than they ever have faced before.
Right. And resilience is the other word that is in there. I obviously read a bit about you in the bio, but tell us how it is that you got to where you are today and how you have decided this truly is your passion and your calling in life.
Oh, thank you. Great question. And as I'm listening to you ask that, 2 events really come to mind. One is the injury. It was the last game of my senior high school football career.
Of course.
With just under 2 minutes to go. The coach had just signaled, because we were winning so handily, signaled varsity, seniors, you've got 2 plays left, and we're sending in the junior varsity to finish out the game. So the next play, I was given the ball as a running back on the offense and a defensive halfback, running the ball around to the right. And it was a kind of horse collar tackle where the defenseman came towards my left shoulder, got the back of my jersey. He deliberately fell down so that I would flip over backwards and my knee whiplashed into the ground, doing more damage than I had realized. But I could tell in that moment, it went from being a glorious day in New Milford, Connecticut, where it was an away game, and then it was a glory game. But now I could tell something had changed. And lo and behold, pretty soon I realized I needed surgery, the first one, and then a new problem began. I needed a second and the third one by the time I'm 20. And that basically at the age of 20, I had a fully arthritic knee.
Wow.
All the meniscus was pulled out. The kneecap had doubled in size. Then it was brought back down shaved down to normal size. There's a lot of reconstructive work done. So that knee injury basically started me on a path that continues to evolve.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that made the other, I'll call it an event in my life
Mhm.
that made a difference, was when the management at the Federal Home Loan Banks
Mhm.
came to me and said, we're about to have our leadership conference annual management meeting, and we need a program for our managers who are experiencing challenges they've never seen before. In
Mhm.
effect, they were in a form of pain.
Mhm.
And they said, we need a program that's very interactive
Mhm.
and helps them look at strategies on how to lead themselves
Mhm.
and others, no matter how tough
Mhm.
things get. They knew of my background
Mhm.
in communications.
Mhm.
They knew of my background actually as a trained caregiver
Mhm.
and someone who designs and
Mhm.
facilitates highly interactive programs. And that's when I created Plan to Be Your Best,
Mhm.
the method for basically to go through a series of experiences
Mhm.
where you identify your own unique resilience
Mhm.
and arm you with and set you on a path to further grow and
Mhm.
strengthen your unique
Mhm.
experiences for yourself and
Mhm.
for others. And that evolved into Plan to Be Your Best as you navigate. It was first Plan to Be Your Best as you navigate change.
Mhm.
Then it became Plan to Be Your Best as you navigate pain,
Mhm.
especially after the seventh surgery, which has left my knee in a state of trauma.
Mhm.
So those two events are really what has brought me to this particular point. And one of the reasons why, if I may, that they said, we want everything that you bring to this. By that time, I had already had 6 knee surgeries.
Mm.
They knew exactly
Mhm.
that I knew of something.
Mhm.
I had a lot of practice
Mhm.
with
You knew what resilience was and things like that. Mhm.
exactly the communications part. They
Mhm.
thought, and also the interactive
Mhm.
facilitation
Mhm.
skills that I brought, because to a great extent, communication is really one of the top 5 or 6 drivers of
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
And if we're going to be resilient, that means driving positive
Mhm.
change through anything that's
Mhm.
very difficult.
Mhm.
And the same strategies that we use to communicate with each other, whether it's a speech, whether
Mhm.
it's national advertising,
Mhm.
which I've done, and I've been doing advertising for decades,
Mhm.
and for national brands and local
Mhm.
brands as well. The same strategies apply to how you listen to yourself,
Mhm.
the messages that you respond to the
Mhm.
pain and what's challenging about it,
Mhm.
both the physical experience, the mental
Mhm.
experience, as well as the emotional
Mhm.
experience too. So, in a Reader's Digest version of how I got to this
Mhm.
point.
Right. And it's just incredible that you're still going. And I think that is one of the things is you're still going. And people tell me all the time, "Oh my, you're so upbeat. You're so positive." And I tell them, "Well, that's what I let you see.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna now my husband knows when it's a bad day or and sometimes other people around me do but yeah, for the most part, no, I don't show it. And now I might crash really hard because I have pushed a little bit too much, right? But I think that's kind of one of the things is when we're little, and especially boys who played sports, right? You're tough, get up, keep going. And I remember watching little kids learning to walk, and they walk into something, right? Now if you go, oh, they cry. But if you go, get up, you're okay, they're like, oh, okay. Now they might have a cut, they might they might have really damaged themselves, but we pick up how we're supposed to deal with adversity and pain and things like that from the other people around us. And I think that's where it gets to be a challenge is then we think we have to fulfill their expectations is maybe the way to put it.
That's an excellent way to put it. And I've been thinking about, and actually, this past summer, I was writing for the book to gain an understanding of a few things, including the resilience you have right now,
Mm-hmm.
the resilience I have right now,
Mm-hmm.
resilience for those of you who are
Mm-hmm.
watching, the resilience you have right now comes from a variety of sources,
Mm-hmm.
including everything from genetics to
Mm-hmm.
your childhood
Mm-hmm.
experiences, the things you were taught, how boys and young men are especially taught in our culture to toughen it up, to be stoic, and to not show emotion at all the experiences that you've gone through to this point have shaped your own unique resilience. But it doesn't stop there. There's fortunately neuroplasticity, and we can continue to actually both understand where our resilience is right now and where we want to take it. We can be the author of what that looks like. And to your point, one of the things as I've been making progress over the past couple of years on this book is getting comfortable talking about the mental journey and the emotional journey. And I was at first trying to, especially I've been on stage enough so that I know what it's like to perform. And the idea of revealing too much was not something I was really very comfortable with.
Right.
But I will say honestly, to experience agony as I do in the form of rapid blasts of pain, dozens of times a day, that I'm living in a state of life where misery is part of every day. Being desperate, feeling and thinking desperate thoughts for relief, it is part of the journey. And it's there are no words to really, and I don't want to describe in any shape or form the words. And I encourage people to be that intentional. There's that word again about their words, because if I talk about, oh, this is a bad day, there's that word bad. I don't want for my resilience to thrive. I don't want my brain, my subconscious, or my spirit to hear me be mental and label the pain that way. That's how to survive and to thrive in this. It's important to, I believe, important to be that purposeful. And yet that doesn't mean ignoring the thoughts and feelings that do need to be cared for along the way. Yeah.
Right. One of the things when you talk about, intentionality and your mind that I've learned through this process is that laughter is so good for you, obviously from a mental health aspect, but also there's physical things that happen to your body when you laugh. And, and so I tell people, it might just be, you go watch I Love Lucy. I don't even know if generations still do that. Right. But, or, you do something that makes you laugh. And even if you fake laughing, your brain doesn't know that it's fake. And so it reacts and does everything that happens as if you really were having a great belly laugh at something.
Reverse engineering the positive effects of laughter.
Right.
The laughter lowers the cortisol level. Laughter will also lower the pain level. Laughter gets us breathing.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that will help reduce pain, because of course, when we're in physical pain, we clench up, right? And we start breathing very shallow. And, I will stop and I will tell myself, breathe slowly, do the in for 4, hold it for 4, out for 4. And it really is amazing what happens. I mean, you can feel your blood pressure go down, all of those various things.
There are, even if you think about stress, let's say that major ongoing chronic stress, let's say that's the pain point. Think of the question of this: when was the last time you were aware of your breathing? And so that the laughter or being thoughtful and saying, I'm going to take some slow breaths and focus on the breathing further, does a couple of things. It actually further lowers the cortisol. It'll lower the stress and in effect, indirectly lower any pain level, because the greater the stress, or likely that the pain will be felt in a more acute way.
Right.
So that's so important.
Well, and when you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, your brain is thinking not owie, 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 owie. It's thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you're kind of sidetracking your thoughts, which is why they say count, maybe not out loud, but at least in your head.
to actually regain what pain does. Pain takes away our focus. It hijacks our focus.
Right.
It can hijack and sap our energy, and it can frustrate our hope. And so, just as you're describing, that's actually part of why there are the 3 steps of resilience in the Plan to Be Your Best approach. Tune in, plan, and be your best. You just described a great way to tune in with your breathing, tuning into something like and actually that very first thought that and choice to tune into your breathing is an act of regaining focus that pain is taken away.
Right.
And then you can build from there.
Well, it's funny. I have a bad tooth. And so I've been in and out of the dentist and in and out of the dentist. And now we're just going to pull the darn thing. Right. But the last time I was in, and I really like my dentist. And so she needed to give me a shot of Novocaine. Now, I do not like that. No. But they put the goo back there, right, and kind of numbed it first. But first of all, I closed my eyes because, right, you see that needle and your body clenches up. So I closed my eyes and I did not think of anything except breathing. And, and I could feel the pressure. I knew what she was doing. But then it was interesting afterwards because she said, "You didn't even flinch." And I said, "Well, it didn't really hurt." Which to me was also a testament to how good she was, right? But yeah, it was because I was thinking, breathe, and you got to watch that. I mean, you don't want to breathe so that you're passing out. And that's where it's the slow breathing, not the.
You're describing the power of focus, and what we focus on is what we experience.
Right.
If I focus on my knee, it's going to increase the
Right.
frequency.
It's going to hurt.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
That's so important. And that's actually part of, if I may, when I work with either a small team or it might be another, there's a healthcare company in New York that brought me in for a day-and-a-half long Plan to Be Your Best conference. They hadn't been together for over 5 years.
Wow.
They're dispersed around.
They were remote working.
Yeah. And this was some years ago. It was before COVID.
Oh, okay.
And part of the way that we choreographed their experience was to be very interactive, to laugh together, to get them breathing together in a way, to break the ice of having been apart for so long. So what you're describing is right. Let's regain our focus. Let's lower the cortisol level in this group situation, so that we can start to start a process of numerous experiences that build on that, and get to the point where they're saying, and this is one particular, I hear it often in different ways, where they say, this galvanized us. And in a way, both individually in our own individual pain experiences, we need to connect with ourselves. And if it's a group, whether it's a small team or a large group, to connect together on their journey. It's usually something that is challenging.
Right. And our first instinct is to push it away and not acknowledge it, right? And the pain that we're talking about is physical pain, obviously, but it's also mental health, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it can just be things like job insecurity. We just, as we're recording this, last week came out of the biggest shutdown, right, that the federal government had. And watching some of the interviews with people who were not sure how they were going to feed their kids, that's pain. That is, and I don't, some of these, sometimes I'm thinking, how do they get past that? But to me, one of the biggest things is to acknowledge it, exactly what you said, and then go, okay, but you're not the boss of me. But we have to acknowledge it because it's there. Whatever it is, we need to acknowledge it, give it the grace that it needs, and then say, you're not the boss of me.
pain doesn't define us. It's the resilience that defines.
Great.
Exactly. There are a number of people who I have stood up in the programs and for different reasons, whether it's change exhaustion or job, re-entering the job force,
Right.
or they've been laid off, and they say pretty much in their own words the same thing. I don't know who I am anymore, and I'm not sure of the value that I bring. Is whatever the pain points that they're experiencing can shake the sense of self, sense of identity.
Right.
And so we actually start right there, looking at re-anchoring and who each person is and their values and build from there. But that is so important to actually, in effect, to your point, let's pause, step back and look at reality and start to take control over, all right, how are we going to define this? There's this wonderful quote by Max Dupree, successful business. I think he's the son of the founder of Herman Miller, the
Oh, okay. The furniture.
furniture company. And he said, a leader, and we first of all lead ourselves. Don't wait before we lead others. He said, a leader needs to do three things. The first thing is to, how did he put it? To recognize and define reality. The last thing to do is to say thank you, and in between, serve. And if we're leading ourselves, we need to define reality and serve ourselves. You mentioned the word grace. We need to extend grace to ourselves. We need to think about, and to your point that you use the word, I think, and part of tuning in is about understanding. If we're going to serve and care for ourselves, we need to understand what's going on, understand our needs.
Right. And I think so many times we think that the weakest thing is to ask for help. Well, no, to me, the strongest thing is to ask for help. And I don't care if that's, I've got this big project and I've overwhelmed, I need help with it. Obviously with physical pain, you need to do what is going to work for you. I mean, for some people that's medicate, for some people that's whatever, but do whatever works for you. And then of course, mental health. And I think mental health is still probably the biggest stigma. We had the story not long ago about the pro football player who killed himself, 24 years old. And you would look at him from the outside and go, he's got everything. He was also expecting a child, and all of these things. And now he's a football player. He's tough. He can't admit he's struggling. And unfortunately, he chose to take his life. And it's interesting because I was talking to somebody else about this, and he lives in Indianapolis, and I do a podcast with him. It's called Cancer and Comedy. And he said that the owner of the Indianapolis Colts battled depression. And so he knew what it was like. And so he's always made it a priority to help his team and his players and people like that through this, and to let them know you can ask for help. Now, of course, back to the whole football thing, traumatic brain injury can do all sorts of things. And that may be what is going to be the result of this one. But yeah, asking for help is strong. It is saying, I want to get better, and this is how I'm going to do it.
There's wisdom in that. That's such a great point. Let me share a little story with you. Just before my sixth knee operation, which was a total knee replacement at the age of 40, I was invited to go to the hospital for an hour-long session to meet with about 20 other people who are about to get their knee replaced. It was being led by a nurse and a physical therapist. During the course of the hour, the nurse passed around samples of the implants, the titanium implants, described what you're going to experience from the moment you walk in the morning for the surgery and so forth. The physical therapist described the importance of physical therapy that starts in the hospital.
Right. Yeah. Like the same day as surgery.
Right. Now it is. Yes. And actually back then, things have changed a lot. The first thing that they did was put my leg in what was called a passive motion, continuous passive motion.
Oh, okay. To keep it from locking up.
Kept moving back and forth. I'm lying in bed. It's just lying there, moving my leg. The people around the country that I was talking with who were also about to have their knee replacement. We ended up calling it, let's see, CPM, continuous pain machine.
I know.
The physical therapist at the end asked a question. She goes, how many of you play tennis? And almost half the group raised their hand. Then she asked, so those of you who play tennis, how many of you plan to playing tennis after your knee replacement? Several people raised their hands. So she promptly said, well, for those of you who are stupid enough to go do that, have to make sure that you only play doubles and add 2 phrases to your tennis vocabulary. One is nice serve. The other one is that's yours.
I like that.
But the moral of the story is when you're going through something challenging, team up with somebody else.
Right.
And be purposeful about adding some new phrases, strategies, and ways of thinking through the challenges.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing that's very important to remember is it is individual. It drives me nuts when I go and a doctor will say, what is your level of pain? Well, I am a natural redhead, and it has been genetically proven that redheads have a higher pain tolerance. And so, for me, I might say it's a 5, and somebody else might be about to pass out. And it was funny, talking about my bad tooth. Now it's infected. That's why part of why it's got to get pulled. It's just all these fun things. And so I was in at the surgeon because we can't just pull it. I have to be special, and I have to have, And so he kept looking at me, and this whole time they've all been saying, doesn't it hurt? And I tell him no. And I tell him, but honestly, it really does not hurt. I mean, that's the funny thing about this. But, I told him I would tell you if it did, but it doesn't. But that's the other thing, to be honest with yourself. And for some people, they don't have a high pain tolerance, or they, too much mental stress or whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with that. They are an individual, and I mean, like, we've all probably worked with people who you've thought, well, I don't understand what their problem is. I could do that and 5 other things. Well, maybe their brain is wired that they can only work on one project at a time. You give them multiple projects, and that's very difficult. All sorts of things. And so that's the other thing, when we're giving ourselves grace, give other people grace too, because we don't know what their situation is.
So true. And just as unique as you experience pain, and as unique as I do, or any of you who are watching, as unique as your pain experience, your resilience is just as unique.
Right.
There's nothing that what my approach to resilience is mine, and I'd like to make this point. The plan to be your best approach is not so that you see my resilience and what I do. It's a matter of, it's going through a process. It's a journey and a set of experiences where it's the way to find your unique resilience and your way of growing, because it's not prescriptive.
Right.
That uniqueness is so important to recognize for ourselves and for others.
Right. And that uniqueness is going to come about when we're dealing with it. How do we get through it? Maybe it is a work project and somebody is just really, really stressed about that. Well, maybe their way to work through that is that they have to do it over and over again. They need it read to them. They need it shown to them. They have to have help. I mean, whatever it is, and it's funny when I was so sick and I was in the hospital, I had, it was very strange. I had an open wound on my abdomen that they left open because we kept going in. It was very strange. And they would, and I did not do well on pain medicine, especially the big guys. Dilaudid, all those things. The rooms moved. There's a reason I never did recreational drugs. I mean, I could take a cold tablet and do the same thing. And so they ended up putting me on morphine, and I was on a morphine pump, which is fairly unusual anymore. They don't like to do that. And they would come in and they would tell me, they'd see I hadn't done anything for quite a while, no pump. And they'd encourage me, you can do that. I'm like, yeah, but I don't need to. And, but then when it was time to change the dressing, which that was the icky nasty, they would come in an hour before and she would say, start pumping. And I learned after the first time she meant it, and I needed that. But yeah, it is different. I mean, like I said, I couldn't take Dilaudid. It was just the strangest thing in the world. And my mother couldn't take Dilaudid either. She was in the hospital for something, and she was close to where they were landing the helicopters for, the emergency helicopter. And so she could hear them. But in her brain, they were in her room. And a helicopter was flying around in the room. But it really, like when they were telling me it's okay to use the morphine pump, I didn't need to. And that's where you need to be your own advocate and say, it's okay, I'll use it if I need to, as opposed to, oh dear, I must pump, right? But our medical team, our mental health team, none of them read minds either. Right. And so you need to say, here's what's going on, good or bad, and just do that.
So true. In fact, the doctors need it. When I was going through a phase testing with maybe 5 or 6 different combinations of medicine to see how it might, if anything might help knock down the pain. And I must admit, Deb, I had similar experiences. Almost all of them gave me the side effect storms. Now, some of which made me just changed my whole experience of time. And I thought I need to go to the ER. It's important to share with the doctors exactly what we experienced with the medication, exactly what kind of pain sensations. One of the things I learned early on was to gain as much information as I could so that I could be prepared. Actually, the P in plan is the first one of the 8 paths of intentionality. And it's to be prepared. I wasn't prepared for the injury. I wasn't prepared for the first surgery.
Right. Well, you were young. You thought you were, totally made of steel.
And so through it all, looking back on it, I realized you may not be prepared, but it's never too late to become able. And I ended up taking a very different approach for the 4th, 5th, and 6th surgeries. That made a difference. And I'm still, in a way, part of being resilient that takes you through the journey of pain where it might be a day where I'm not prepared for this level of pain, but I know what I need to do to become able.
Right.
That's resilient thinking.
Right. Well, let's go more in depth with the 8 paths of intentionality. So walk us through those. And, and we want people to contact you. So just give us the overview.
Very good. They plan and best are acronyms for the 8 paths of intentionality. The first one is prepare. Well, how about if I do this? I'll describe what each one is and basically what the essence of it is.
Okay. Perfect.
And it's each path includes a variety of questions meant to be discussed and thought, reflected on both individually and with someone else, either one person or in a small group. And the prepare is about re-anchoring in who you are. If, as I was describing earlier, it's not uncommon when people will say, this is just shaking my sense of myself. I don't know who I am anymore. So let's start there. Because if we're going to build any kind of plan, whatever that might look like, we need to have a sense of that foundation.
Right.
We also take a look at our values, what's important to us, or what we will need to re-identify. What's important to us will help facilitate each next one of the paths. The next one, the L in plan, stands for listen. And it's a lot more about listening than just listening to others, listening to yourself. You're very much so listening to the words that you're using, listening to what the meaning is. Even listen so carefully. Have you ever thought about, ever practice active listening where when you're listening so intently, you're able to reflect back to them what they say, but you're also listening for what's not being said.
Right.
because there's so much understanding to gain, including what's behind those words. Then the next one, the A in plan, stands for accept. And it's not just about accepting the pain. I would actually say that's a small portion of it. There's this wonderful poem by Khalil Gibran, the prophet, in which he makes a point that pain has two important values to it. One value is transactional. It is the pain experience. It is the hard stuff. It is the suffering. And suffering actually means both experiencing the hardship, the adversity, but another definition for the word suffer is to allow. So that's one value, this that transactional value. The other, and this is all part of the accept domain, the accept path, is the transformational part. And there's this wonderful analogy that his poem helps to create, where pain digs into us and creates a void. It begs the question, what are we going to fill that void in? And he contends that the best transformational aspect, the value of that, is to fill it with love, with patience, with that wonderful word you used earlier, grace, to fill it with our softer self. If our ego is the part that is about protecting ourselves, making sure we're surviving and so forth, there's the spirit, which is actually thinking more upwards and above, higher thoughts. So that's where the transformation happens. And in effect, I would say each one of the 8 paths of intentionality might very well be called the 8 paths of transformation, because we need to start to create new patterns of transformation so that we can create new patterns of resilience. Pause and ask me if any questions.
Oh, no, this is fascinating. I love it. And I was thinking, this is such valuable information for anyone.
So true. Whether you're dealing with stress, something new, maybe it's even something positive. Think of the stress that comes from stress.
Right. Yeah. Are you expecting too much? What if you don't live up to it? Whatever, all of those various things.
The root of all frustration are unmet expectations.
Right.
Think of that. So as we then move from accept into the now, and the N in plan stands for now. And that's about being in the moment, such as you were talking about. A great example of watching some comedy. I watched this wonderful clip from George Burns was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Here's George Burns smoking
with his cigar. Yes, he always had his cigar.
He's in his 90s, maybe 95, and Johnny Carson saying, "How many do you smoke a day?" And he says, maybe a dozen or so a day. And just as Johnny Carson starts to say, "So what does your doctor think?" George Burns quips, "He's dead."
Yeah, he outlived his doctor. Probably outlived a bunch of them.
So George Burns was actually, that's what humor can do for us. It takes us in the moment. What we do in the moment matters greatly in 2 key ways. One, in the now moment is when we're centered, we're focused, one back our focus. We're now regaining energy. What are we going to choose in this moment to be resilient? Not only that, but in the now moment, if you think about it, as pain happens in the moment, so does resilience. We can even, in the now, think ahead to a future time and become prepared for example, I've always struggled with, I'm very uncomfortable about being in pain in front of other people. If I'm meeting with clients or out to dinner, sometimes it makes me scream, and I don't like disrupting a restaurant with. But when we think ahead and plan, what resilient thing am I going to choose in that moment? In a way, we're in the now, but transcending time. And that now work is something that is a deposit for your future resilience. Before I had my knee replacement, the other thing I needed to do is go back to the hospital for having my blood drawn. They were going to use my own blood for me during surgery,
Right.
to basically keep me alive. Back then, on average across the country, 2% of the people who went through a total knee replacement didn't survive for one reason or another. So that was called autologous blood donation.
Okay.
In the way, there's also autologous resilience. We can deposit into our resilience toolkit things that we can pull out in the future. The resilience that we've put into it that we can take out for our resilience in the next moment, the next day, the next week. So in now we do a variety of things like that. So the B in BEST stands for bold. And it's not about being loud, but it's about being assertive. Because one of the things that pain will do is get us stuck. We can get stuck in that vortex of thought.
And we kind of curl up amongst ourselves.
Exactly. And again, the pain might be levels of stress. The 50% of the adults in the U.S. agreed in a particular study that they feel this sense of paralysis because of the amount of stress that they're carrying. Some people think that the actual number is probably higher. So it takes assertiveness, it takes boldness to get unstuck. So we work on that. The A, rather the E in BEST, stands for encourage. And there's 3 ways to experience encouragement. One is to encourage others. And we take a look at the ways to also receive encouragement. And when we take a look at a third way, when we do encourage others, that can flow because of neuroplasticity right back at us and lift us up. There's this wonderful Booker T. Washington quote that says something like, if you want to lift yourself up, try lifting up somebody else.
Right.
So we spend the time looking at not just encouragement, but take a look at that root word, courage. And what does courage mean in your path of resilience? So then the S in BEST stands for serve. In effect, what I'm doing by writing the book and as a resilience coach, I'm living out my purpose. I found new positive energy when I identified that I'm not going to waste this pain. I'm going to use it. I'm not going to waste what I've learned about resilience. I'm going to use it to help others. And that there's energy that comes from that, vital energy that I need to survive this. And then the T stands for triumph. And there's several aspects of triumph. The one that I think is the most important is to basically look at the successes, look at even the smallest successes and celebrate them. Celebrating your resilience and every resilient step, even if it's a small one, is starting to create new patterns of thought and making it easier to do 2 things, to be not only resilient in the future, but to strengthen your confidence in your resilience. So that rounds out the 8 paths of intentionality.
Right. And all of those are so important. And the thing that is kind of the overriding thing is it is about your brain. How are you dealing with this? I was thinking, I think I was in 8th grade when my mother made me read The Power of Positive Thinking, which I believe is by Norman Vincent Peale, right? And now as an 8th grader, I couldn't grasp it. It was, it didn't. And, but it is about being positive. Now, not 100% of the time, we are human. And again, give yourself grace to say, this is bad. I mean, I had a day last week that was one of the worst days I'd had in a long time. I had treatment that day. Now, treatment went well, and so there wasn't anything, but, it's just kind of annoying to have to go do that. Then we lost one of our dogs. Then I went and had to talk to the surgeon about my jaw. And I got home and I had scotch. And my husband thought, oh, dear, right? Because I don't do that. But it really was just, it was like, no, it's too much. And it's okay to feel like that. And to say, okay, I'm going to feel that pain that, it was definitely a heart pain, right? Especially when you lose a beloved animal, I was annoyed because they're going to knock me out to pull a tooth out. I'm like, seriously? Don't you just use a pair of needle nose pliers? But so so all of this was there and it was like, no, I'm done. I'm just done for the day. I'm not going to check email. I'm not going to do anything because none of it's going to make me feel better. And then I woke up the next day still blue, right? Because it doesn't just go away, but it was okay. Now I can deal with it. And yeah, and there are times where we all go through that, and I keep saying this, it's okay.
Your point is so important. There's no perfection in pain management. There is no perfection in resilience. And it's important to not expect. There's that word again. There's expectations. If you expect perfection, you're going to be disappointed. And understanding that there's no perfection in this is part of, basically, it goes back to that word of suffering, to allow the journey to unfold, and allow trading the fight for flow. I fought the pain tremendously during those first 3 surgeries.
Right.
I did some fighting when I was going through surgeries 4, 5, and 6. In surgery 7, and even though I'm now in more pain than ever, I haven't fought it at all. I haven't had any anger or bitterness. I have embraced the importance of two things. There's 2 things about this. If I'm fighting for anything, I'm fighting for moving forward, for going with the flow. If I fight, I'm going to become bitter. I'm going to become angry. The energy that takes is the energy I need for my resilience.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about when it comes to how am I creating energy? How am I winning back energy? How am I preserving energy? How am I spending it? I don't want to spend any amount of energy. This is part of, I can get kind of intense, Deb, about this. This is when that ferocious line of intentionality comes out of me. I will preserve every ounce of energy for the resilience to not fight it. It's wasted energy.
Right. And when I was on your podcast, we talked about how, strangely enough, what we have been through has been kind of a blessing, right? First of all, I would have never met you. And so many fabulous people in my life that I have met simply because I have cancer. Do I want now, if I could go back, I don't know. I might say, no, I don't know. But it really does make us think differently. And one of the things that you talk about intentionality, toxic people, toxic things. I don't watch the news. I know what's going on in the world. I'm not an ostrich. I know what's going on, but I don't need to know every single detail. I don't need to dwell on that. And it's funny. I remember a story about my mom. Now, I lost my mom about 18 months ago, and she was a strong-willed woman, to put it very mildly. And when I was sick, she came out. And it was funny, as my husband put it, she didn't come out to take care. She came out to take charge. And so she lived in Kansas, and my dad passed away in 2009. So my mom was by herself. And I actually had people who called me because they were concerned that she had gotten so negative and so grumpy and just, and she was, she was never Miss Pollyanna. She was the glass is half empty and broken. Was kind of her, but she figured this out on her own, which I thought this was so interesting. She was watching network news. Now, she happened to be watching Fox, but it can be, any of them. And all of that negative toxicity over and over, because there's only about 5 stories and they just repeat them right over and over again. And she would have the news on 24 hours a day. She slept to it even, all of these things. And it dawned on her that was what was going on. And so she put herself on a news diet. And it was just the funniest thing in the world, because she would do an hour of local news. What happened, and some international, what's happened overnight type of things, right? Just an hour. Then she would watch the true local news at noon. What's the weather forecast? What's going on locally? All of those things. And then she'd, an hour in the afternoon, more international news, what happened during the day. And she did have a couple special programs that she watched where, but she wouldn't do more than maybe 4 hours of news a day. And the rest of the time she either had music on, and we all know how wonderful music is, or the Hallmark Channel. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. And she said, she can fall asleep and boy and girl break up, boy, they get married. Doesn't matter. You can come into 5 different movies and it comes, it's all the same. But the change in her mental outlook was amazing. I mean, I even noticed it on the telephone on my calls with her. And it was about just not having that negative thoughts, that toxicity. And sometimes those are people, right? We've all worked with people. We've had them as family members, all of those things who are just the world, the sky is falling and it's awful. And we're going to get, and so, one of the things I learned through this process is limit that, do not get yourself around them because you're not going to change them. You can't say, well, why don't you look on the bright side? They're going to look at you and smack you. But yeah, remove those people as best as you can from your life. Maybe it's the Hallmark Channel. Now, I'm not wild about Hallmark right now because it's only Christmas movies. And I'm one of those traditionalists. I don't like Christmas till after Thanksgiving. But yeah, what can you want? Maybe it's just, 24 hours of Big Bang Theory or Harry Potter or whatever it is. And music definitely, I think is something that's important, but get rid of that toxic in your life.
So important to you who are watching. The wisdom and the story that Deb just shared is about boundaries. If you're being squeezed, if you're under pressure, it's important. And the boundaries are for you. I heard this wonderful quote, Deb, that if someone's frustrated by the boundaries that you create, they're the reasons that you created.
Yes. Yeah. If they're mad that you won't answer their text, there's a reason.
Exactly. So Rick Warren, I heard him use the phrase right out in the local news, if it bleeds, it leads. And,
I'm a PR person. Yep.
If we take in all that and we're being squeezed, what's going to come out?
Right.
If you fill a tube of toothpaste with toothpaste, when it's squeezed, toothpaste is going to come out. If we're putting in, if we're, depositing in ourselves negativity, the more we're squeezed, we'll create an outpouring of negativity.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And we've talked on the program numerous times about you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that's personal, professional, all of those things. So think about that. Who are you spending your time with and what are you doing? It's interesting because we don't socialize as much anymore for a variety of reasons. I mean, I've definitely become much more of a homebody because of COVID, and just never, got back into doing things. But, who am I? What posts am I reading on Facebook? All of those things. And, and what, what is that? What are those 5 people or, 3 or 10 or whatever? I mean, what are you getting from them?
And I found, especially for myself and the people who need it most, those who are in the greatest amount of pain, and I'm working with them, we look closely at who those 5 people are and ask a number of questions because not everyone knows how to be with someone in as much pain. We had talked about, everyone has their own unique approach to experiencing pain, unique approach to their resilience. There are couples, for example, I know that have been in my care where they've lost a profound loss, and the couples will work through how they grieve individually and together. This is all to say, sometimes it can be worthwhile thinking about expanding your circle to include other people who know active listening, who maybe know what it's like to experience profound pain. because they can provide, and part of what I provide in my caregiving and as a resilience coach is a level of understanding that few people can bring to it. And there's more understanding, there's more empathy, and more of a few things that people in pain really need. One is to be understood and to have the right kind of compassion and empathy.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes the best ones are furry, right? The best friends that you have. We have a new puppy. Oh my gosh, he's just as cute as can be. But I have a friend in Denver who had a dog that was a trained therapy dog, and she and the dog, and it was this lovely Labrador, and of course Labradors are just hi, right? And she spent time at the airport. That's one of the most stressful places in the world sometimes. And she would just walk around. And she said the uncanny thing was the dog knew that person needs to scritch my ears. And, children, adults didn't really matter. And they still have that program. I mean, and I've seen it in other airports, and they are comfort dogs. And we see those kind of in hospitals and places like that, and those are fabulous. But yeah, I was so interested in the fact that they had it at a major airport. Now they don't have it here at Hartsfield Jackson, anyhow, not that I have ever seen. And of course, it's the big guy on the block. But yeah, it's sometimes just sitting and petting the cat. I have a friend who has a parrot. That parrot is a comfort to them, and so, yeah, maybe they have fur, maybe they have feathers. I don't know about scales. I have a friend who has a snake, and I just don't know. But yeah, and I think what I'm in my roundabout, squirrel way of saying is find what works for you.
Yes, so true. And that is part of the journey. It's a necessary part of the journey. And to think about what it takes what works for you, what goes in your resilience toolkit, what maybe is worth trying, but you find that's not right for me. That's okay too. That's okay too. But actually trying. As a marketing professional, communications professional, one of the principles of effective marketing is testing. Try this.
A/B testing.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So important. See, you're full of wonderful wisdom, Deb.
It's all these great people that I talk to on my podcast. Well, oh my gosh,
Rick.
Rick.
I met you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. When I first met you, I could tell right away, and I know that wisdom is part of your journey, that your wisdom has increased along with your conviction. Put the two together, that's your courage.
Well, thank you. And it's still a challenge, but right, that's the resiliency, and it is like they say, nothing hard is easy. We and I think somewhere I messed that up, but it is, we're going to value it more if it was harder for us to get.
Yes.
So
not only that, but you're of more value because of what you've experienced. For those of you who are watching and are listening, what you're going through is actually increasing your value to a point that, especially when you equip yourself with new strategies and skills that kind of come out of Plan to Be Your Best and other programs, you become uniquely qualified to play a more powerful, valuable, and positive role in the lives of others. And we need more of that.
Right. I love it. Well, speaking of Plan to Be Your Best, we're almost at the top of the hour. But for people who are saying, I need to reach out to Rick, I need to talk more about this, how do they find you, and what are the services that you provide?
Thank you, Deb. The place to go is Rick Cram, RickCram.com. Heaven help me if I ever forget that. Or you can email me at resilience@rickcram.com. At the website, you'll find a number of other things. We can connect with me and we can have a call. Let's just talk. I'm here to listen. I'm much more of a listener than I'm a talker, perhaps contrary to what this past hour has been like, but I listen carefully, and I listen because I understand you need to be heard. I understand that you need to express what you're experiencing. And part of what you'll see at rickcram.com are a number of opportunities to participate as you wish, when you wish, something called Take Heart, which is a twice a month program, which is about basically a community of people who are strengthening each other's resilience. It's completely free. It's a Zoom, the first and third Sunday of every month at 3:00 in the afternoon Eastern. That's one. Another is basically a studio. It's a resilience studio, or also twice a month. We get together to actually experience real resilience in real time. And both of these are all conversation. So those are two things to take a look at, along with contacting me for whether it's just a time to connect or even to spend some time with having a free resilience planning conversation.
I love it. And you are just a delight to talk with. We've now had several conversations, and they make my week, and so I just love it. I love it. And you do have a book coming out, and so, folks, watch for that. But, and we'll have you on again, because I think it's very important, especially as we have more trauma, drama, whatever the heck's going on in the world, to be thinking about these, because this pertains to that also. And so I think it's very important to do that. But until then, Rick, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Thank you, Deb. What I'll do is two things. One, when you do set yourself on a path to really get to know your unique resilience, and along that path, strengthen it, experience what it's like to get to the point where you realize and you're able to say with confidence that your best is greater than the pain. That kind of confidence is going to give you a resilience that you've never known before. It'll be found in your way, your own unique resilience. To be able to say that, my best is greater than the pain, is really powerful. And then you can also say, even with the pain, my best days are ahead of me.
I love it. Such wise words to end on. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Rick Cram of Plan to Be Your Best. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.